Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yatkripatamaham bande paramanandamadhavam. Gita Dhyanam. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Krathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamrita Varshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Amba Tvamanusandathami Bhagavad Gite Bhavatveshini. Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Phullaravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnana Mudraya Krishnaya Gita Dugdam Gitamritam Mahat. Gitamrita Duhe Namaha. Sarvopanishado Gavaha Dogdha Gopalanandanaha Partho Vatsasudhir Bhokta Dugdham Gitamritam Mahat. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Bhishma Drona Tata Jayadratha Jala Gandhara Nilotpala Shalyagrahavati Kripena Vahani Karnena Velakula Ashwathama Vikarna Ghora Makara Duryodhana Varatini Sotirna Khalu Pandavairananadi Kaivartaka केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटम् नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम् लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयात् भारतपङ्कजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसिन श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्कपतक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः. Let us read what we covered last time. We are on verse number 24. So we will read from there. All right. Sanjaya uvacha evamukto rishikeshah Gudakeshena bharata senayorubhayormadhye स्थापयित्वा रथोत्तमम् भीष्मद्रोणप्रमुखतः सर्वेषां च महीक्षिताम् उवाच पार्थ पश्यैतान् समवेतान् कुरुन् इति तत्रा पश्यत् स्थितान् पार्थः पितॄनथ पितामहान् आचार्यान् मातुला भ्रातॄन् पुत्रान् पौत्रान् सखींस्तथा श्वशुरान् सुहृदश्चैव सेनयोरुभयोरपि तान् समीक्ष्य स कौन्तेयः सर्वान् बन्धूनवस्थितान् कृपया परयाविष्टः विषीदन्निदमब्रवीत् अर्जुन उवाच दृष्ट्वेमं स्वजनं कृष्ण युयुत्सुं समुपस्थितं सीदन्ति मम गात्राणि मुखं च परिशुष्यति वेपतुश्च शरीरे मे रोमहर्षश्च जायते गाण्डीवं स्रंसते हस्तात् त्वक्चैव परिदह्यते न च शक्नोम्यवस्थातुं भ्रमतीव च मे मनः निमित्तानि च पश्यामि विपरीतानि केशव न च श्रेयोऽनुपश्यामि हत्वा स्वजनं माहवे न काङ्क्षे विजयं कृष्ण न च राज्यं सुखानि च किं नो राज्येन गोविन्द किं भोगैर्जीवितेन वा येषामर्थे काङ्क्षितं नः राज्यं भोगः सुखानि च त इमेव स्थिता युद्धे प्राणान् त्यक्त्वा धनानि च. Okay, so where are we in Bhagavad Gita? What happened is all the conches were blown, everything, war has started. Bhishma blew the first conch. He blew the first war cry, and then, I'm sorry, my video is off, huh? Okay, Give me one moment. I think there's an issue with my camera. Sorry about that. Give me one moment. I will start on my other camera. All right. This is camera number 2. That's why you have 2 cameras. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. This computer is unpredictable like everything else. But here we go. This is camera number 2. Okay. So where are we at now? Camera turns to Arjuna. Let's move to Arjuna. Arjuna is in the middle of war and he tells Lord Krishna, let me see who I have to fight so confidently. I want to see who it is I have to fight. And so Arjuna goes to see who he's about to fight. And Lord Krishna puts him right where it hurts, right where it pains. Why? Because Bhagavan has this magical way of putting us in the kinds of situations that make us grow and evolve to the best of our abilities. He gives us enough sorrow to make us grow, enough joy to keep us walking. And exactly what we need, we are given. Exactly at our weak point, we are touched. And that's how Lord Krishna said, ha, I know what's going to break Arjuna. And he didn't, not that he's so happy about breaking Arjuna, but listen, Lord Krishna had to give us the message of the Bhagavad Gita. He had to. So there had to be what we call a nimitta. There has to be a situation. And this was the apt situation for this beautiful scripture to come out. And Lord Krishna brings Arjuna in front of Bhishma, Drona, all of his relatives. And the minute he sees all of this, he collapses. We find that in this chapter, what is shown is shoka or sorrow and moha, delusion. Sorrow is shown by his bodily language, how he collapses. Sidanti mamagatrani. His limbs fail. Mukham cha parishushyati. His lips are parched. Vepatushcha sharire me. He's trembling. Roma harshascha jayate. There's goosebumps all over. His head is spinning. So if you see, physically, his body is failing. His speech, his mouth is parched. It's dry. And then what happens is his head is spinning. And can he control himself? No, he can't. And his Gandiva, his pride, his joy even slips from his hand. This is what happens to dear Arjuna. And so this is his expression of sorrow. And further, so in verses 28 to 28, he sees everybody. At 28, his Sidanti Mamagatrani. 28 to 30, we see his sorrow. You know, he sees all of the sorrow. He sees all of these things happening. And from verse 31 onwards to the last verse in this chapter is the expression of what we call moha or delusion. We see how deluded he became. And let us just explore this a little deeper this time. What happened to Arjuna is he lost his role. He lost the clarity of his role. He lost the clarity of vision. He went in as a soldier. When I go in as a soldier, what happens is the nation is my responsibility. When I go to any place as a teacher, education is my responsibility. When I go in as a doctor, health is my responsibility. So it is never the person. It is never about the person. It's about the principle. As a justice, as a judge, the law, the protection of the law is my responsibility. With every single role, there is a responsibility. And sometimes there is a conflict between two roles. Sometimes I'm a soldier, but I'm also a friend. I'm also a brother. There's no way a soldier can go to war and say, oh, my brothers, my sisters, my friends. No, at that time, the dominant role is the one that affects the most people. That has to take precedence. And for the soldier, the nation is the responsibility, not the family, the nation. And so with every single role we see, there is a responsibility. At that particular time, in that field, that's your role, this is your responsibility. Now, once he says, and you can see in his language, he says in 28, where this starts, why I'm saying from 28, because he says, Drishtvam Swajanam. He says, I am having seen my people. That is where it starts. When we say it's about my people, again, we lose sight of the principle and we focus on the person. This is the first sign of fall. When we lose the clarity of our role, we lose the clarity of the vision, we become deluded. And this is, he felt now, he's seeing his, people there in the battlefield, and he's saying that, how can I kill them? How can I go against them? That we find is, or we think is compassion, but as I said, it's misplaced compassion. You see, compassion means that we put ourselves in somebody else's shoes and feel what they're feeling without any prior judgment. Not that, oh, that's why they are, they do so many wrong things. That's why they feel like this. Or they are, always doing this kind of thing. That's why they're behaving like this. They deserve it. That is not compassion. Compassion means putting ourselves in other people's shoes without judgment and just feeling what they're feeling. Now, when we practice compassion at the wrong place and the wrong time, that is called misplaced compassion. When we practice compassion in the war field where we're supposed to be soldiers fighting a war, that is misplaced compassion. That compassion is not right at that place in that particular time. And that is what happened with Arjuna. That's why it says these words in verse number 27 and the first part of 28, Kripaya Paraya Vishtaha, means kripa. By this Kripaya Paraya. Paraya means it's misplaced. He just completely lost sight of it. This is what happened to Arjuna. So he lost his sense of role. Because of lack of his role, his responsibility was clouded. He didn't know. He didn't know what to do. And he felt like, oh, I feel so bad. I feel so bad. I feel pity. I feel sad for the other person is an okay feeling at the right time in the right place and not where we are supposed to be in our duty. Gurudev says very beautifully, he says, all this time, people are paying taxes to our, to our government, to our military. And all of a sudden, in the midst of war, a soldier can't say, I'm going to take out my uniform and I want to be peace-loving. So it's not the right kind of attitude to have. It's always the principle. And we can see now how Arjuna is like this student who is going through immense therapy. Because we said in the first chapter, Lord Krishna speaks but a few words. And in this, verse number 31, where his delusion dialogue starts, he says, "Oh, I see ill omens. I see various ill omens. I don't think we should fight." This is nothing but justification in disguise. He's just disguising everything and trying to justify it. Sometimes, when we don't want to do something, we'll say, isn't it too cold outside? Isn't it really snowing? Are you sure you really want to go? I mean, isn't it too early to go? Isn't it too, so many things? Is it the right time of the month? Should we do it another time? Whenever we want to get out of something, we tend to put all of these things in there. It's I don't think, I look at the clouds, they're a little bit darker today, so it's not a good day to do all of these things. That is our very mind justifying, delaying, hiding, because we don't want to do what is to be done. So in and through Arjuna's dialogue, you will see hidden layers, things that look good on the outside, but there's something hidden on the inside. And in 31, as we saw, he said, Nacha Shreyo Anupashyami. In the second line, he said, I don't see anything good. I don't see anything good. Hatva Swajanam Ahave. By having killed my people. Again, my people. So again, the vision is lost. It came to my people, my people, my people. So you can see, even in his language, this is how he's expressing. Now he says, I don't see any good. And then in verse 32 and 33, we see that here he's talking about, I don't see any drishta phala. Means I don't see any immediate good. I don't see any immediate good result by having killed my kith and kin. I just don't see it. And he says in 32, he says, I don't want victory. Nakakshe vijayam Krishna. I don't want victory. I don't want a kingdom. I don't even want pleasures. What will I do with all of these things? I don't need them. And he said in 33, he said, those people for whose sake yesham arthe kankshitam naha rajyam bhoga sukhani cha. Yesham, for them who rajyam, kingdom, bhogaha, bhogaha means enjoyments, sukhani, pleasures. Yesham arthe kankshitam nahat. For them whom we desire, kankshitam naha means for whom we desire, them whom we desire this kingdom, these pleasures, these joys. Ta ime avastita. Te ime means they are here. They're right here stationed. Yuddhe, in this battlefield, they are here stationed. Pranans tyaktva dhanani cha. They are having given up their lives, having given up their wealth for us. They are here stationed. And so, this is what, so he's saying, so what is the point of all of this? I don't want any pleasure, Lord Krishna. I don't want any enjoyment, because those who I will get it for, they're right here and they're giving up their lives. Again, here, there is a hidden thing. It appears that Arjuna is being very, very selfless. It appears that he's being very detached, dispassionate, saying, I don't want any pleasures. I don't want any joys. I don't want any kingdom. Actually, this is complete selfishness. It's selfishness hidden in selflessness language. Because Arjuna, it's not about what you want. It doesn't matter whether you want the kingdom or you want the riches or the pleasure. It's not about what you want or what you don't want. It's about dharma. So sometimes, even if we don't want certain things, it's not about that. It is always about dharma and never about the individual. So again, here he loses sight of it. So as I said, if you and I are reading these, verses just casually, we will think, wow, Arjuna is really vairagi, so detached. But you have to look at the second layer of each of these verses that Arjuna is talking about. Okay? Now, we will start from verse number 33. We will read 33 and 34. Okay? So I will chant and then you can repeat. Acharya pitarah putraha
Acharya Pitara Putraha
tathaiva cha pitamahaha
Tathaiva cha Pitamahaha
matula shvashura pautraha
Matula Shvashura Pautraha
shala sambandhinastatha
Shala Sambandhinastatha
etanahantumichhami
Etanahantumichhami
gatopi madhusudana
Katopi Madhusudana
api त्रैलोक्यराज्यस्य
Api Trailokya
हेतो किं नु मही कृते
Heto Kim Nu Mahi Krite
आचार्याः पितरः पुत्राः तथैव च पितामहाः मातुलाः श्वशुराः पौत्राः शाला सम्बन्धिनस्तथा एतान् हन्तुमिच्छामि घ्नतोऽपि मधुसूदन अपि त्रैलोक्यराज्यस्य हेतो किं नु मही कृते. What does he say here? He says, Acharya. Again, he is again envisioning all of those he has to fight. Huh? And very often, when we are in so much confusion, we keep repeating and repeating what we have to say. If you'll notice those people who are really confused, again, for 20 minutes, they'll say the same thing only, but they'll say it in so many different ways. Huh? This must have happened to you also. Arjuna is exact same case. The same thing he's saying, but in a different way. How so? Acharyaha means his teachers. Bhishma, Drona, Pitaraha, fathers. Those people who are like his father there. Putraha, sons of his cousins. Tathaiva cha pitamaha, even grandfathers, those who are like his grandfathers there, like Bhishma Pitamaha. Matulaha, like his Shakuni is Matula also, his mother's brother, and also Shalya, mother's brother, meaning Gandhari's brother Shakuni, and Shalya was Madri's brother. Shwashuraha, and he says fathers-in-law also, those wives of his cousins, their fathers. Pautraha, grandsons were also there from the other side. Shalaha, brothers-in-law. Sambandhinas tatha, and all of these relatives. Again, he starts to elaborate it so we can really see. Etan hantum ichhami, them I don't want to kill. Na hantum ichhami, I don't want to kill them. Knataha api madhusudana, even if I am killed by them, I don't want to kill them. Api Trailokyasya Rajasya, he says, even this kingdom of the three worlds, Trailokya Rajasya, even this kingdom of the three worlds or dominion over the three worlds, Hetaha, for this sake, Kim nu Mahi Krite, or for the sake of the earth. So I do not want to kill them, even if they are killed, if I am killed by them. I do not want to kill them, even if I am killed by them, for the sake of the earth or for the sake of dominion over these three worlds. So here he's saying he doesn't want any adrishta phala. Adrishta phala means punya, papa, means all of these foreseen things which we will get, hopefully, because the Vedas say that we will go into higher worlds. There will be, great dominion over certain worlds. All of that the Vedas promise for those who engage in certain acts. So he says, I don't want any of this. I don't want all of this. I would rather be killed by them. Again, when you look at Arjuna's stance, it seems very vairagi. Huh? In Tattva Bodha, we see what is the definition of dispassion. Iha amutra, right? That which is here, desires which we can get here or in the far worlds or in the heavens, the tyaga, the letting go of that and letting go of the fruits of that is called vairagya. So it may seem like he's very dispassionate, but actually, again, Arjuna, it's not about you. It's not about what phala, what fruit you want. It's about dharma. And very beautifully, the name for Lord Krishna here is Madhusudana. Madhusudana means the killer of Madhu, that demon Madhu. So he says, Lord Krishna, even if you are Madhusudana, I don't want to be like that. I don't want anything. He almost just wants to go away from there. Now you see, we can criticize Arjuna to a certain extent, but let's also understand that he is put in a very difficult spot. He's put in a very difficult situation. In our lives, how many of us can realistically stand up to dharma? How many of us can actually do it? If we are in front of our friends, our family, our relatives, and we know we have a greater role to play, and we see that they are doing something wrong, how many of us can actually stand up against that? It is not very easy. Now imagine Arjuna has 1,000-fold scale. He is in a challenge. It's multiplied by 1,000-fold. It is not, I'm not able to stand up to my family. It is, I'm not able to stand up to this whole, it's millions of people on this battlefield. So he is put in a very difficult position, and hence Lord Krishna has that compassion, and it's not misplaced, it's rightly placed. He has that compassion for Arjuna, and he continues to listen to Arjuna, and at the appropriate time he sets him straight. But for now, he wants to continue to listen to Arjuna. So let's see what else now Arjuna is saying. What else is he expressing? On verse 36. Nihatyadhartarashtranaha.
Nihatyadhartarashtranaha.
Ka priti sya janardana.
Ka pritisya janardana.
Papamevashrayedasmat.
Papamevashrayedasmat.
Had Tvaitana
Hatvaitanatatainaha
Nihatya dhartarashtranaha Ka priti sya janardana Papamevashrayedasman Hatvaitana tatayinaha. So here now Arjuna comes with his second type of justification. So his first type of justification in verse 31, he said, Nashreyo anupashyami. I don't see any good. In 31 it was the omens, the evil omens. He is justifying. And he says, Nashreyo anupashyami. I don't see any good. Then in 32, he says, in 32 and 33, he says, I don't see any drashta phala. I don't see any immediate good coming out of this. So I don't think we should fight. In 34 and 35, he says, I don't see any adrishta phala. I don't see any long-term good coming out of this. And I don't want any of this, right? I don't see any, I don't want any of whatever will come out. These are the arguments that he lines up. Here now, he says, nihatya. Nihatya means having slain. Dhartarashtranaha means the sons of Dhritarashtra. Kapriti syat. Kapriti syat is what pleasure will I gain? O Janardana, O Lord Krishna, what pleasure will I gain by slaying the sons of Dhritarashtra? And he says, Papam eva shrayet asmat. He said, Papam. Papam means sin. Eva ashrayet asmat. Ashrayet means papam, that sin alone, evam ashrayet, will be our gain, will be the gain, asman, to us. That sin alone will be the gain to us. Hatva, having slain, etan, these atatayinaha, felons. So what does he say? Killing these sons of Dhritarashtra, what pleasure can be ours, O Janardana? Sin alone will be our gain by killing these felons. Again, there is an error in his very question. What he says, Nihatya dharta rashtrana ka priti syat. What will we gain? What pleasure will we gain? Means, why again are you talking about pleasure? It is not about what kind of pleasure you will gain or what kind of pleasure I will gain. Again, the context is lost. So you see, this is the kind of language wherein we lose context. When we use words like my, I, ours, that is a sign of losing context. When we use language like what is my gain, that is a sign of losing context. When we use language like what pleasure, what pleasure will I get, that has already lost context because you're fighting a much bigger battle. Your role is much deeper. So all of these things have to be set aside for dharma to happen. Otherwise, dharma cannot happen. And that's why dharma is not an easy thing. And he says, we will get sin. We will incur sin by killing these atatayinaha. So first we will look at atatayinaha, then we will look at sin. Atatayinaha means felons. Felons means these people who have committed these 6 acts. And these 6 acts are in your commentary. You can check it out. And we will see each one. The first one says, set fire to the house of another person. Basically, one wants to cause harm to another person. So setting fire to the house of another person. 2 is poisoning the other person. Poisoning the other person. 3 is with sword in hand, trying to hurt the other person, kill the other person. 4 is stealing that person's wealth. 5, stealing that person's land. And 6, his wife. Now, if you look at all of these 6, the Kauravas did to the Pandavas. It's not only they did one, they did all 6. So if you remember in that Lakshagraha, in that palace of lack, that palace of fire, they tricked Yudhishthira to going to the forest and spending time there. And they constructed a wax palace for the Pandavas. And the plot was they hired this Purochana to burn that palace when the Pandavas were there. But remember, Vidura saved them. He sent someone to build an underground tunnel, and so the Pandavas were able to escape. They tried to poison Bhima when he was a child. If you remember, Duryodhana had invited everybody to this picnic near the Ganga, and he invited Bhima to the tent, and he fed him nicely, and he fed Bhima poison, and he threw him in the river. And it is there where Bhima drank that elixir, that amritam, and that's where he got his strength from. With a sword in hand, fall upon him to kill him. So this is exactly what's happening now. Now they're in the war. The Kauravas are the ones who instigated this whole thing. That is not that the Pandavas didn't try to make peace. We saw the whole story elaborately, how the Pandavas, led by Bhagavan Krishna, wanted peace more than anything. But the Kauravas refused. And those who steal wealth, they also did the same thing. They stole wealth, stole land, and stole Draupadi. In this game of dice, if you remember, this game of dice was plotted by Shakuni. Shakuni knew that he was a cheater. He knew that he could cheat Yudhishthira in this game of dice, and therefore he arranged it. He arranged this game of dice, and he kept throwing the dice. Yudhishthira lost everything. He lost his wealth, he lost his land, and they even lost Draupadi. And that was the biggest conflict. So all of these things they committed. This is called atatai. So now, when one is a kshatriya, when one is a warrior, their dharma is to protect people from such people, not let such people live and rule. Because you can just imagine, if your ruler is capable of all these things, what kind of nation or what kind of country will they rule? And if you're a kshatriya and you let this happen, then that the whole moral code breaks down. Imagine if NYPD or whatever police department, they let everything happen. They let everything happen. They let, they let murder happen, shooting happen, they let rape happen, they let all of these things happen, and they don't sit and do anything about it. Because they feel like, what good are we going to get out of protecting the people? If one just sits back and one is a kshatriya, and you let all of this happen right in front of you, that is completely adharmic. It's completely adharmic. Because as a kshatriya, you are there to protect the people. You cannot say, they're such nice people, or let's give them another chance, or let's do this, or let's do that. No. If somebody has gone through this extent, then they have to be defeated. They have to be destroyed, because they cannot keep going. When we let adharma prevail, adharma keeps prevailing. You please see, in anything that we have, any occasion, any event that we have, and let's say we become very lax with the laws, we become very lax and let people do whatever they want, then that becomes the law. being lax becomes the law. And so when there is adharma and we don't put a stop to it, especially if we are in that position, adharma prevails. So therefore, again, his thinking is incorrect. He will incur sin if he doesn't fight, not if he fights. If he doesn't fight, that's a great sin. That is going against your dharma. But if he fights to protect everybody, that is going in the grain of dharma. So you see, this dharma is not a very easy thing. It's not a very easy thing to figure out. But with deep thinking and reflection, we are able to know what we have to do. Sin, Gurudev has given a very, very beautiful definition of sin in the commentary. And, I will just read this paragraph so we can really reflect upon his commentary. He says, sin is only a mistake committed by a misunderstood individual ego against its own divine nature as the eternal soul. To act as the body or the mind or the intellect is not to act up to the responsibilities of a man, but it becomes an attempt to behave under the impulses of an animal. All those acts performed and motives entertained, which create grosser mental impressions and thereby build stronger walls between us and our cognition of the real divine spark in ourselves, are called sins. Very beautiful definition. If we want to know what is sin in our Shastra, the number one sin, and this we will see in chapter 2, this will come in chapter 2, the number one sin is to take ourselves to be the ego and identify with the body, mind, and intellect. That is the number one sin. If we think that we've made mistakes in life, this identification with that ego is the biggest mistake that we can make. That is called sin. That is called papa. Now, coming a notch down in our daily living, what is called sin? It is when we perform with impure motives. We perform an act with impure motives, with impure intentions, and thereby we create a greater gap between ourselves and the divine. That is called sin. Whenever I walk away from God, that is called sin, point blank. Whenever I do something that takes me away from God, from my divine nature, from the truth, in our Shastra, that is called sin. And adharma is a sin. So here again, Arjuna's thinking is twisted. He's saying, so see how twisted it is. And please, this is also how we think. So Arjuna is not the only one here. He says, what good is going to come out of it? What pleasure will I gain? Means again, wrong. It's not about what pleasure you will gain or I will gain. Next is, how can we kill atatai? Those people who are doing so much wrongdoings, they have to be stopped. Next is, we will gain sin if we kill them. Then the complete definition of sin is misunderstood. So in these lines, you see that from Arjuna's side. We continue to verse number 37. Tasmanarha vayam hantum.
Tasmanarhan vayam hantum.
Dhartarashtran swabandhavan.
Dhartarashtran swabandhavan.
Swajanam hi katham hatva.
Swajanam hi katham hatva.
Sukhinasyama madhava.
Sukhinasyama madhava.
Tasmanarha vayam hantum dhartarashtran swabandhavan swajanam hi katham hatva sukhinasyama madhava. Tasmat, he says, tasmat. Therefore, he says, vayam hantum na. He doesn't want to, he says, I don't want to kill them. Tasma na vayam arha. Means we don't desire to kill them, for it's not justified. It's not justified. This arha word means justified. It's not justified to kill them. Who? Dhartarashtran, the sons of Dhritarashtra, Swabandhavan, our relatives. He says, therefore, this is the conclusion he arrives at. It is not justified to kill Dhritarashtra's sons, who are Swabandhavan, again, our relatives. Swajanam, they are our kinsmen, Krishna. Swajanam, katham hatva, how can we kill them? And Sukhina Syama Madhava, how can we be happy killing them? So again, here he says, therefore, we shall not kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, our relatives. For how can we be happy by killing our own people? Oh Madhava. So this is the conclusion that he comes up with. And again, now that you will have the eye to see through the language, again he says, my bandhava, my relatives, my kith and kin, and what joy, what pleasures will we gain from them? So this is the first sort of set of arguments that Arjuna gives. And so what we have seen is he makes justifications. So a person, when they are confused, they tend to justify, especially when they want to cop out, they want to justify. A person who wants to know the truth and wants to do what's right, they clarify. These are two separate things. One is the person who justifies, tries to get out of it, tries to see what I can do. The other person clarifies. And that clarify might be harder because it might involve doing something that I don't want to do. But that's precisely what dharma is. Which brings me to the second point. Dharma is not about what I like. It's about what's right. So there's one category of person who does what he or she likes. There's another who does what's right. And the third point is that he is thinking that he will gain sin by performing dharma. Dharma is actually quite the opposite. By performing our daily dharma, it purifies our mind and actually frees us. It doesn't bind us. So this is what we see with Arjuna. Now, he gives forth more and more arguments that we will see next class. Okay, the next set of arguments that Arjuna gives, we will see next class. I just want to, now what I will do is I will say the closing prayer, and I am ending 5 minutes early because I have a few announcements that I need to make, and I also want to explain about the breakout room and the Q&A to see if that format will work with everybody. Okay, so just bear with me one moment. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.